Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today I thought we'd have a look at some more anime. So I'd look at this sort of double edition. Here we get Wicked City and Demon City Shinjuku. So be having a look at this today. I'd never seen either of these films before up until this release. So, I haven't, after watched these for the first time, I'm just giving you, I know Wicked City, I'd heard of both of them actually before. I know there was a Hong Kong live action version of Wicked City, but totally sort of unfamiliar with sort of I know they were like mangas, that kind of thing before. But just giving you my impression on these kind of movies and just sort of what I thought of them and if they're worth checking out and that kind of thing. So first up we have Wicked City, made in I think it was 1987. It was when it came out. Based on the manga of the same name, obviously, the film follows the existence of our world and an alternate demon world. These films, Wicked City and Demon City, they're both similar in context, but both films are very different, sort of some ways in their execution. So the film follows the existence of our world and alternate demon world. Our lead poses sort of as like an electrical salesman, but really works for the Black Guard, who are there to sort of keep the peace, but like between the two worlds and keep an eye on sort of demons and just see if they're coming into our world kind of thing. So you just got like sort of two planes existence sort of coexisting at the same time. And he is basically tasked with protecting Giuseppe Maya with the aid of a woman from the demon world. Who this Maya, he's essential to the peace treaty that's being held between the human world and the demon world. So he's just been tasked with just protecting him, because obviously they want to. There's this peace treaty coming up about it, and they're just tasked with protecting him. Somebody from the demon world, somebody from the human world have to look after him. Now, obviously, with a film like this, there's a lot of misogynistic and sadistic tones to it. Sex, violence are very common in these type of films. Don't mean just I don't mean anime films as a whole, but I mean this kind of genre of anime. The most infamous being the woman that turns into a spider as she is having sex with our lead guy at the start. One of the scenes that's quite violent as well. At one point, he punches one of the demons so hard that the demon's eyes sort of burst out of the sockets. There's a lot of sort of visually sort of violent and disturbing images in this kind of film, and it's like I said with sort of my Ninja Scroll review, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not something you can sort of go into thinking, okay, I'll just chill out watching some anime. I mean, there's quite intense stuff, The dub is somewhat wooden in places. I watched it both Japanese and dubbed. It is somewhat wooden in places, as were a lot of anime at the time. So that's, if you recall in my Akira review, it always stands out when an anime is like a dub is done really well, especially for films that were coming out around that time. Here, the dub is somewhat in places. I mean, it's okay, it's passable, but there's just some places it is a bit wooden, and with what's going on in the context of the story, as I say, sometimes it does seem like sort of Saturday morning cartoons kind of voice work here going on. Some of the lines in the films mentioned are a bit cheesy. I mean, the guy they're trying to protect, this Maya guy, he's like a perverted sort of version of Yoda, if you can imagine such a thing. Like, he has sex on the brain, he keeps ogling women, he keeps going to brothels. Some of the lines in it when he goes to this brothel and he's with this woman who turns out to be a demon, it's really cringy. Like, even for animation, it is a bit sort of, it is quite gross in places. There is actually a bit of a twist at the end of this film, when it turns out that Maya, these two were tasked with protecting him, and it turns out he was the one protecting them, as he is from. You got one guy from the human world, and she is from the demon world, and as the story goes, they sort of fall in love, and the idea is that if they fall in love, they're going to have children, and they'll be accepted by both sides, and it'll breathe like life into like a new world, like a new hope so like both like worlds can like sort of coexist, and like it have a lot to do with this peace treaty that's taking place. I mean, it's not the best anime in the world. Obviously, I have to get through it quite quick, so I've got two sort of films here to review. It is somewhat crude and vulgar in places, but the whole film is about 80 minutes in length, and it is entertaining for that 80 minutes. But as I say, there is, it's just got them undertones to it, where it's, as I say, it's sort of that sleazy sort of undertones. I mean, there's sort of rape in this, like from demons in this film and things like that, and it's not for the sort of faint of heart. I mean, I think these kind of films. So I've never seen the live action version of Wicked City, so I don't know if anybody I don't know if, did I read somewhere Soy Hark had something to do with it or something like that. But yeah, if any of you have seen the live action version of Wicked City, you'll have to let me know. And I know, like a bit like with Akira, I know that this version of Wicked City, it didn't encompass like all of the manga and like the source material. I think it only adapted, this is only sort of volume 1 of the manga. But for, you know, for 80 minutes, I mean, like I say, it's just it's violent, demons, you know, some of the language is quite coarse, and I say the dialogue is quite cheesy, but for all that, it's still an entertaining film, as I say, made in 1987. But yeah, as I say, the Spider Woman at the start, I think is, I mean, I was sort of familiar with that, for God knows how. I don't know where I'd sort of seen it before, but I always remember like Wicked City, even before I seen the film, was the one with the Spider Woman in it, where she sort of her limbs, and this is like all within the first 5 minutes of the film, so it does sort of set the tone for the film that follows. And like I say, sort of, she has sort of Jaws as her, you know, so it's some of the images of, like I say, very visually disturbing. They can be sort of, you know, they do sort of stick with you for a little bit, but for all that, as I say, it's a very intense film, but at the same time it's sort of, there's nothing, it's not to be taken that seriously, because I say, when some of the and some would say it's so crude and vulgar, some of it, but I still enjoyed it. But going on to Demon City, this one's a lot more lighter hearted. This one's a lot more sort of very different in tone. As I say, it's still got that element of a demon world and a human world, but the film is more like, I would say, in vein with sort of a Highlander type of story. It's more in vein with sort of a Highlander type of film rather than sort of a Blade Runner, you know, sort of Blackguard, how it was in Wicked City. Here it's very much in line with a Highlander type film. The film even opens with a sword fight, and even like there's a bit of Devil May Cry sort of here as well. At one point, the villain known as Rebbe Ra, he sort of has like a red leather sort of trench coat on, sort of very much like the Dante kind of guy from, you know, the kind of sort of Dante vibes from Devil May Cry. So yeah, so it's definitely a different vibe in that sense. This one's not as intense as Wicked City. It's definitely not, I would say, as violent. It's definitely not as sort of a bit of an assault on the senses as much as Wicked City was. I mean, the cheesy dialogue is still there in places, and there's a few F-bombs along the way. This film is basically, as I mentioned, about this guy called Rebbe Ra, who has opened himself up to the demon world and to do their bidding so they can take over. And our hero, whose dad was killed by Rebbe Ra, teams up with the world president's daughter to stop him and bring him down. For some reason, the daughter is given a very suspect British accent, and one of the characters in this, like, sort of is a child sort of on roller skates who is sort of Mexican. I mean, the British accent is somewhat, as I say, you do raise a bit of an eyebrow at it. Not as intense. You still get the demon battles in this like you do with Wicked City. They still, you know, but the plot is very thin in this one, as I say. Whereas Wicked City, although I always felt with Wicked City, for the first hour of it, you're thinking, okay, this is just, you know, a lot of just demons and violence and all this kind of thing. At the end of Wicked City, there is kind of like, I don't know if you, I think it's, is it Knowing with Nicolas Cage, where it turns out his kid and this other girl, they have to be like the new Adam and Eve in like this new world. This film has sort of that vibe to it, where they're going to create, their offspring is going to breathe in like the way for a new world, like that hopefully warrant peace, that kind of thing. So Wicked City there was a payoff there with Wicked City. With this film, it's, as I say, there's still demon fights in it, but it's very sort of by the numbers plot. It's very sort of, this guy's opened himself up to the demon world. This guy's dad was killed by him. It's very much like sort of sword based combat, this one, and that's sort of it really. I say his son just has to go and stop him. The film has some sort of very uncomfortable moments, not so much with the demons themselves, but like there's one bit where they're in a bedroom and she's asleep on the bed, and he won't trust himself to lay in the bed next to her for fear he may not be able to control himself. So like, what does that mean? You was just going to force yourself on this woman, and this is our like main protagonist, you know. So it was a bit sort of, right, okay, don't trust yourself. But there's my favourite line in the whole film of Demon City Shinjuku, that I love this line. He goes, one of my favourite lines. He goes, when he gets asked at one point, "What are you going to do to Rebira?" And his response that always makes me laugh. He explains. He says, "I'm going to tear his head off and shove it up his ass." Absolutely love that. It just comes out. He goes, "Well, I'm going to tear his head off and shove it up his ass." It's just, it always made me chuckle, that line. But as I say, not as intense as Wicked City, but very much the same type of demons, human world, that kind of vibe. So I've sort of rushed through these two films here. As I say, I'm not squeamish by any sense. Love my horror films, love everything like that. But like with I'm not sure how you say it, and through fear I'm going to say it wrong. But what was the manga that the one I used to have? Is it, you wrote Sukudoji? I'm not sure how you say it. I've probably said that completely wrong. Had it on DVD. Legend of the Overfiend, or I remember owning that, and I found that I didn't understand that fully, but that was very much like sort of the whole Wicked City. What they're going for here is that type of film. I say big apologies, shoot me in the head if I've said that wrong, but yeah, with like demons and just how sort of, like I say, graphic and a lot of violence and that kind of thing. But yeah, going back to wrapping it up with Wicked City and Demon City, it's very much sort of the same kind of films. Both films, though not great, 80 minutes each. You could do a lot worse. And as long as you like films with monsters, demons, swordplay, violence, etc., I think you'll be right home. So check them out.